I've like lived in my head for so long.
Yeah.
That like something that awakens my instincts in that way, like the biological aspects of like, oh my God, like I have a uterus and like this person activates my uterus and like now I have to deal with that.
Hello and welcome to the Fuck Suffering Podcast. I'm your hostess, Rei Hance, and today we have Scout Leader Wiley back on the podcast. We had her on a couple episodes ago where we both ran around chasing mental objects like a couple of little magpies, and I felt like I had kind of neglected her more tender inquiry. So she's back today to delve a little deeper into the things that were resisted last time a bit. So we get into belonging, intimacy, how to fall in love, young love, requesting witness, polyamory, boundaries, open relationships, being needed, and then being left behind. Welcome. What is our guest's question for the I Ching this week? How do I honor my desire? So I felt like I had to message you after our last thing because it was so fun to chase all of the little magpie shiny objects, and that is such a joy for me. But I really do felt like I did you a disservice by not honoring kind of like what you had come in with initially and how you answered the question of what's most alive for you right now. And so I really wanted to give that space and like honor that more tender spot and honor that more like horror.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. I was like, yes, an opportunity to like talk to you more and like just learn what you know about I Ching and stuff, because it's very interesting. It's not my like my thing is definitely more like runes and tarot, like more so runes than tarot in a weird way, because I'm more experienced with tarot in an intellectual sense. But I don't really feel into the tarot as much. But like with runes, it's like, I think it's because the symbols are like with I Ching, the symbols are like very basic.
Mm-hmm.
With tarot, the symbols are so complex. It's like hard not to intellectualize them.
And for tarot, there's also figures there.
Yeah.
And so like the figures in some ways take away some of my imagination's capacity to fill it.
Right.
If that,
yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah. It's like there's more, again, with that sort of spaciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really good to just learn and talk to you and stuff. And I'm definitely super nervous because like the last time we spoke, it's like we were in like the safe realm for me. And you're saying kind of like, okay, let's go to that other place. And I was like, oh no, I have to do it. I know that I have to do it. So I'm just but like, I'm not going to be comfortable about it, obviously.
So more tender. And that's why I could feel that. And I felt like, so like, ooh, that wily Scout, she kept throwing down those shiny things and I kept picking them up.
So I was just on a podcast with Michael Garfield. Do you know Michael Garfield?
I don't know him, no.
Okay, he's really cool. He's got like a whole platform or whatever for it's called Future Fossils, and it's just like
cool. Oh yeah.
That guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was on an episode recently with him, and we he just posted about it again, and he was like, yeah, we just did the thing where we just like just bounced off of, it was so much chaos. Like our conversation was so much chaos. He spent so much time editing it. Like I felt so bad. I was like, oh my God, no, I know that like we were just like, we're both like that. We're both like,
it's so fun.
Yeah,
it's just so generative and so exciting and like, like I love it.
I wasn't even doing it on purpose. Like you have to understand, I wasn't doing it on purpose. I wasn't like trying to avoid anything. I just was like, I genuinely thought that like we were both just following what was emerging. So I was like going with it.
Totally. But it is like the path of least resistance for me too. It's such a delight to just like spiral, rabbit hole, flowers growing out of the rabbit hole, back in the rabbit hole,
Right.
nip the roots, come back out, climb the tree, look at the sky, back into the rabbit hole. Like, I love that. But today, let's drop into that horror space. Let's drop into that like empty womb space and talk about like this thing that's coming up for you around relationship and open relationship and the avoidant pattern and how that relates to open relationship, which is a very juicy area.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like open relationships help my anxious side because I'm both, right? Like I'm a combination of both. Attachment wise, it's like fearful avoidance is what they call it. Or I think anxious. It might be anxious ambivalent, actually. I don't know. It's one of those, or it's both of those.
Is it like I love you from 10 feet away. Please don't go any further.
Yeah, it's like, please don't, like, it's like, be right there. Like, I want to control how close you are. And if I'm not in control of how close you are, I feel upset. So if I want you closer and you're not closer, I'm upset. If I want you further and you're not further, I'm upset. And if you move and I don't tell you to move, then I'm going to throw a tantrum. You can only be where I want you to be at all times. Like where it is. And I was just talking to this person like earlier. We were talking about exactly this and it being you have to like, it's like that there's this like testing thing that we were talking about. And I was like really pissed. And then I was like, no, I also do that. And like to a certain degree, valuing the ability to like be resilient through hard times with someone is really important. But there's also the way of like avoiding intimacy until like the person proves that they won't like abandon you. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like, so that's kind of what's coming up.
Getting someone to prove themselves before you open instead of the other way around where you just come in open and then realize that probably that is all the proof anyone needs.
Right. Like my response to your opening is going to give you the thing that you want instead of like.
And you coming in open will give you more of the response that will cause you to open more.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like learning this, but like, I feel like that's a little bit more accessible to women than it is to men. I feel like we're like kind of taught to open. We're like told that like opening is like, it's almost like opening can be manipulative because that's the skill you're taught. You're not taught how to like use contraction or use like a boundary. You're just like, oh, let everyone walk all over you. Like, be nice, be nice, be nice, be open, like be caring, be kind, you know?
Well, but people pleasing
in current Western society, but like traditionally, I'm saying. You know?
Well, that's performative opening. That's not really opening.
Yeah.
That's a pleasing performance of the false feminine. That's nowhere near like that much darker, deeper, truly replenishing yin.
Yeah. That one is scary though. Like you like
oh shit.
The pretty opening is not the opening that I trust. The ugly opening is the one where I'm like, give me more of that. You know what I mean? Give me more of that like nasty opening, you know? Like,
the more you bring that, the more you'll get that.
Yeah.
It is 100% you'll be received how you receive.
Yeah.
And like, I think we get really confused sometimes, especially when heading into like that anxious attachment, discerning the difference between openness and collapsing.
Yeah.
Like surrender and collapse have two totally different energies. And sometimes in anxious attachment, when I swing to that part of the spectrum, I lose my sense of the difference between surrender and collapse.
Yeah.
Like falling into a puddle, like going all the way into the deepest part of that yin and expecting someone else to hold it without me notifying them that I needed a container for that. Like, I would like to pour myself into this container, and instead I'm just going to leak all over your floor. Is that fine? Right. Will you still love me if I'm a puddle on your floor?
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's interesting. Thank you for saying that. Cause like, I wonder how to like give the signal, cause I do that a lot. I'm just like ready to just like be like, I have all these feelings. And then like people respond with like discomfort and like a desire to like solve the problem. And I'm always like, no, this is like how I am. Like, I'm fine with it. But like, how do I do that in a way where it's like, I know people are going to respond weirdly to my extremely sensitive, very emotional nature. And that's like surprising too, right? Because I'm such a thinker. So like, it's like, oh, like she's a thinker feeler. Like, how is that? I'm like, yeah, I'm literally both. Like, Enneagram describes this very well with like the 4-wing 5 type, which is my type. It's like, you are like an emotional intellectual. And like, that's kind of throwing people off because it's like, you're intellectualizing your emotions and then you're a puddle on the floor. And people are like, what? Like, I thought you were just going to be like aloof the whole time. It's like, nope, I'm unpredictably like, I'm like unpredictably aloof and then like unpredictably like there's a hot, cold quality to me for sure. And so like, I should own that and be like, how do I navigate this?
It's so interesting how like in so many of these, I'm coming back to this Roshi Joan Halifax, very simple koan, soft front, strong back. And realizing like the more I sit with that and embody it, the more complex I understand it to be. Like that energetic navigation, that walking of that middle line down along the center of the relative and the absolute, and understanding that there is always this vastness that accompanies this body. And that the more this body maintains a strong back and that confidence of being at ease with all that vastness, the more tenderness and confidence I'm able to walk through the world with, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does. It makes perfect sense.
So yeah, like how that balancing of like the thrill of the intellectual enterprise and then that embodiment of like how not to wear someone out by your perception of every nuance.
Mm.
Not having to report on your reception of every nuance. Because that can be exhausting for other people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know.
And what I came to as like a way to, I simply ask to be witnessed. Like, Can you please witness me here? You're not responsible for this. I'm just asking to be witnessed here. Which is like, there's nothing to be fixed. There's nothing broken. This is not your responsibility. I'm just asking you to be witnessed here because I love you enough to be fully seen. What a beautifully embodied reaction.
Yeah. Nah, I just.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It took a long time to get there. It just was like, oh
it's
God.
So simple.
It's so simple.
So like also not.
Will you please just witness me here? Yeah. It's so tender. It's such a tender request.
I literally am going to say those exact words next time something. So I was on the phone with this person and we were talking about like, how are we going to connect with like there being coronavirus and being in 2 different countries. And then he's like, oh, I might move soon. And then I was like, what the fuck? I was like, you're going to excuse me? Like, literally, I like, because I don't know, I was like prioritizing my own, like, oh, this is a big deal. Like I'm taking a leap of faith here. I'm going to go visit a person that like, and then I'm assuming that like, if I do this, then like, I'm willing to like face whatever comes up. Like this is a big fucking deal for me. And then he's like, I don't know how much longer I'm going to live here. And I was like, whoa, what? And he's like, and I have no idea where I'm going to go. And I was like, okay, thanks. Like, and so I kind of like, it got emotional and he was very confused. He was so confused. I had to like explain like, yeah, in hindsight, I had to explain like, yeah, no, I'm having an emotional response that you do not need to do anything about. And
Yes.
he's like,
that can make men super uncomfortable.
yeah. Yeah.
Like there's nothing to do here.
He was a little fucked up about it. Yeah. He was pretty fucked up about it. He was like, I don't know what to do.
That is like such an incredible place for intimacy to grow.
Right.
Please just witness me here. There's nothing, I don't need you to do anything but witness me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for witnessing me.
Yeah, no, I think he might have had like an intimacy hangover because there was like a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
Yesterday, we were talking and we have these like long conversations of just like, yeah, we'll like get on the phone and then it's like, oh, we've been on the phone for 5 hours. Like we should probably get off the phone and like do our lives. But then we just don't end up doing our lives and we just end up getting back on the phone.
Oh, that time is so precious though. That time is like, that's like gold right there. That's the gold.
Yeah, no, I'm not complaining. It's like absolutely wonderful to me because like I can still get my shit done. Mm-hmm. It's not like it's taking time away from myself. I'm not like sacrificing my like thing. Like if I need to go do a thing, I'm like, okay, I need to leave now and do a thing. But it's like when I'm not doing a thing that's like maintenance of self or like work or business or anything, I'm like, yeah, I want to spend my free time talking to this person because it's just like generative and whatnot. But
so by generative and whatnot, are you saying that you're falling in love with this person?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Like
I wasn't sure if that was Scout E's for if generative.
Well, I meant generative in the sense of like I learn a lot. That's what I meant by that.
Okay.
But there's also the falling in love with this person part, which is like
important to include that.
God. Fuck.
I was getting a sense that might have been what you meant by it, but I did want to clarify.
Yeah. Now you know. Now I'm like, you're seeing me. I'm like, okay. Oh God.
It's great.
Yeah. No, this is good. This is good.
Yeah. So your question before was sort of about mothering and stuff. Is that coming up around this fertile new soil?
Yeah, it's like weirdly connected to like, so it's almost like in experiencing. So this whole thing actually started with my cultivation of like my work, right? And in like choosing to really like fully just like devote myself to that and being like, this is like the thing that I am, and I'm devoted to being the thing that I am. The sort of what happens when that happened was like this relationship kind of started to, this is someone that I've known for like 3 years. But like this relationship started to sort of like enter my experience more fully. Cause it's like, we're kind of similar in terms of like the work we want to do. So that just kind of made sense. And then like other relationships are also, because like my work is basically centered around relationships. Like it makes sense that like my relationships are becoming relationships that are centered around this thing that I'm doing, which is like my service thing, and then that thing is like centered around, like I'm centered around that. And then everything else that's centered around that is like, I'm now centering around those things too, if that makes sense. So like, this like mothering thing is starting to now emerge as like a part of that service thing, relationship thing of like, okay, so like I'm just starting to organize my life in the way that it's supposed to be organized. And then like, it's the reason why like that emerged is like, it seems like almost like a parallel thing to like the relationship that I'm experiencing, where like, I feel like at the very least, it's like preparing me to like enter a space of, or a level, or the level of maturity that would be necessary for motherhood, which is like very interesting. We also talked, we talked about this actually last night of like, we're both in this like same container of like art. And it was like, we were just talking about like all of the people that are in it. And it was like, oh, we're like everyone's mom and dad in this, like, so it's like we bring that thing out of each other, which is very interesting because it's like newly, like, it's not like a, oh, we're going to get married and have kids together kind of thing. It's like a, oh, we're like people that like, we're friends that like now are attracted to each other, that like bring out this part of each other. That's like, it's very interesting. I don't know.
It's very natural.
It's like freaky for me. It's like, it's like super freaky. I feel like I'm having a heart attack all the time.
It's very natural.
Apparently, yeah.
It's like the most.
I didn't know that. I didn't know this. Like, I had no idea. I had no idea.
You had no idea that sometimes people fall in love and want to make babies together?
No, I knew that. I didn't think that, like, I've been so detached from I've like lived in my head for so long.
Yeah.
That like something that awakens my instincts in that way, like the biological aspects of like, oh my God, like I have a uterus and like this person activates my uterus and like now I have to deal with that.
Your ways of saying I'm in love are the most charming. This person activates my uterus. Is that so? Oh, that's delightful.
I'm sorry. I'll try to be less dorky. Wait, no, I won't.
So great. No, it's the best. It's the best.
I get you're complimenting me right now, but
it's so awesome.
I'm obviously embarrassed because I'm not realizing that that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like,
it's so sweet.
This is my experience, and you're like,
yeah, I totally. And it is so. You are so utterly yourself, and that's part of what I just adore about you. Like, you are so utterly yourself. It's perfect.
Yeah, no, I get this a lot. I'm like, okay, you're welcome. Look at like, should I take a bow? Yeah. Okay.
Well, let's dig into this. Let's dig in. So, which side do you want to come at this from? Like directly into like the mothering thing? Come right into that? Like, what is my correct path with mothering? What feels closest to where you are squeezing against it?
It's really interesting. It's like when I think about what's coming up and what's going on, there's a field of questions, and I'm like, I find all of the questions to be like so sacred that like I don't want to like I want the question to like reveal itself to me. That's the right question. But then it's like, oh, I'm afraid that like, what if like I'm not ready for the answer or whatever, but that's like not even really a thing. Cause like if I was like, I know when I'm like ready for the answer to a question, and like right now it feels like I'm not ready for the answer to any of the questions, but we're here together. So obviously it's like time for me to like reveal something to myself.
Well, I always suggest when people are formulating questions for the I Ching to really first consider, what am I willing to know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that as a guideline because that's like important. Mm-hmm.
It will give you whatever you're ready to receive.
Yeah. yeah, I guess I'm just like, I'm worried to like feel this uterus activation, right? And then like, I guess, how do I remain like unattached through that like awakening process? Because it's like, if I like feel this, like I'm afraid that like if I feel this, I'm going to get attached to an outcome, and then I'll get disappointed if the outcome doesn't happen.
And
I don't really want to.
What's wrong with that?
I'm just sick of experiencing that. Like, I feel like I've experienced that enough times, and I feel like I'm learning how to like hold that disappointment in like a more graceful way, maybe, or like not like bridge into denial as a way of avoiding disappointment, or like,
okay,
I don't know.
That's
Does that make more sense?
Oh, that does. Yeah.
Because that's what I'll do. Like, that's what I have done. And that's why I've given myself unnecessary pain or unnecessary suffering in the past. Because I'm actually trying to avoid pain. And then, like, instead of just like feeling the pain when it first comes up, I like avoid it through the denial and fantasy building. And then, like, I don't want to do that.
Or are you generating a pain that you're in charge of? You're generating pain that you're in control of.
What do you mean?
Like, instead of feeling what's actually there, creating like a preemptive pain that's within your control that can be very fruitful for creating things too.
I'm not sure if I understand the phrasing of that, but like what I'm really saying is like, I would love to fall in love with the person and make babies with them, but I'm trying to avoid, like, I think that I'm trying to avoid the pain of maybe feeling that and not having it be reciprocated. And then as a result of that, I feel like I'll end up asking a question that's not authentic, because I'm trying to like control my experience of pain or disappointment, or like avoid something. And so that's why I'm struggling to ask a question.
Okay.
Because I feel like the question that I would be asking wouldn't be enough, like really what it is that I'm here to know. It would be like demanding an answer that I don't actually really even want or need, or having that answer wouldn't actually be helpful or useful to me, if that makes sense. And I'm just like wondering how I can let myself have what it is that I do have. Because right now it's like I do have what I want, and I struggle to like really experience having what I want while I have it. And that's why I cling. And so like, I'm right now like experiencing this through my relationship with money too. Like, when I have money, I don't let myself experience having it. And then when I have to spend it, I feel like really bitter or like frustrated, because I didn't get to experience having it before I used it. And then I don't allow myself to experience having the thing that I bought really as much. Like, I don't really treasure what I have while I have it, because that activates the loss, like I'll lose it eventually. Like, I can't enjoy having something without knowing that I'll lose it. And like, that just is something that's pervasive in all of my life. And so like, if I am like, and this kind of ties into mothering too, because like when you have a baby, you get really attached to it. And like, my fear with that is like, oh no, what if I get so attached to my kid that I smother them? So it feels like this like losing kind of experience thing, this like examining my relationship to having and my relationship to loss is like preparing me to not smother my child and like allow them to like be independent or, you know, dependent when they need to be and not dependent when they need to be, and like have just like a healthy relationship with them in the future. And like I'm practicing that now in like all of the different kinds of ways. It's just like, it's really just like one pattern that shows up in all the ways. The most immediate. What?
What's the relationship with this pattern and intimacy?
Well, that's where it flares up the most, because it's like I want to preserve relationships, and then I try to control them.
I think what you're talking about is intimacy with money, intimacy with people. It all sounds like intimacy.
Right. Yeah.
Like the courage to open to inner penetration.
Yeah. That's really well put. That's exactly what it is.
So what's unbearable?
I don't know if anything's unbearable. I don't know if that's an answer I can question. I don't know if that's a question I can answer with my mind.
It's not.
Like that's going to require like a moment of reflection and like contemplation.
Yeah.
This feeling of like being left behind, that's something that this makes sense, because I've noticed that like the only like most of the time if I ever become like deeply reactive, it's because I don't feel included. And then it's like I don't allow myself to feel included, because if I feel included, that means that I can also be excluded. Once I'm in, I can be kicked out. So I may as well just like not be in ever and just always be out, because then it's like I don't have to feel the
pain of being left behind.
Right. It's like I don't have to feel like I was stupid and I made a mistake by opening up. Because like, oh, I got left behind, like I didn't get included, and it's my fault because like this is the narrative. Like it's my fault because I let myself be vulnerable in the first place, and like trust people to let me in and stuff into the group, you know? Yeah. And then it's like in my work, I get to be the one who chooses. Like I get to be the one who decides. I'm the one holding the container. So I can't be excluded because I'm needed, you know, like I'm useful. Very Capricorn moon. Like I won't be abandoned if I'm useful. So let me just like get super skilled and be really smart, and like no one will ever not need me because I know all the things. And what are you going to do without me? Right? Like I'm the one who knows all the things.
That's very valuable though.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's like I want to be grateful to that part of me for like actually get like leading me to a place of like value of like, yes, I do have value. I can recognize that I have value. And I also want it to know that it's still like can be included and loved, even if it didn't have that.
Well, it's really interesting that you're being activated by motherhood then, because isn't motherhood like the ultimate setup to give your heart completely and then be left behind?
Yeah.
So it's kind of that's the story. That's the job. That's the deal.
Yeah. And my mom, I don't think has dealt very well with that.
I don't think many mothers do. How could you?
Yeah. And like I've noticed that like I'm clingy. She's clingy, but she's also like cold. She's definitely like an ambivalent person. And then I've taken that on. And I don't really want to pass that on. Like there are things that I will pass on probably that are like traumatic, like karmic things. Sure. That's not one of them that I want. Like I'm aware that I can actually heal that, and it doesn't have to be a thing that continues on.
What is the wounding from that look like in you?
It very clearly is connected to my breath and my tendency to hold my breath, like and the tension in my diaphragm, and the tension in my my genitals, like my sphincter, my just pelvic floor in general. The like weakness there, like the inability to really connect to that part of my body. Mm-hmm. And then that play, like when I'm singing, that's when I'm like aware of it, because like the singing posture and like the sort of like push pull, what do they call it? A piston. It's like a piston.
And the diaphragm
and stuff. Yeah. The diaphragm's relationship to the pelvic floor is like very intimate. It's very much connected with this energy of like, don't leave me behind. Like I'll be like, I'm a very like, I have a very loud voice. I talk a lot. Like, I think that comes from like feeling called to be like, hey, wait for me. Like, don't leave me behind. Like, your back's turned to me, so I have to yell to get your attention, you know, that kind of thing.
That's a really tender spot.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm feeling like it opening a lot lately. And it's like, oh. Like every time you said something about me being in love, it was like, that's what that tremor was like that part of me waking up and being like, oh God, no. Like, I don't want that, because I don't want to be like left behind by this person. And there being like a third like that, him having like a partner already, and like she knows about me and I know about her, and it's all totally like kosher and fine. There's still like that like monogamous programming of like, oh well, I'll still be left behind, because you know there's like I'll find some reason for it to be like, yeah, I'll be left behind because this person lives XYZ, or oh yeah, I'll be left behind because this person likes a thing that I don't like, you know. And now the excuse is like, oh, the person's partner is like the reason I'll be left behind or something, you know.
Fair though, that's a legitimate concern.
Yeah, no, it's very real. Yeah. I'm not like dismissing that. I'm just saying, like, if that wasn't there, I would definitely find something else.
Okay.
So I'm just owning that part of it, because that's the only part.
How honest of you to give yourself such a clear testing ground of your deepest fear.
Yeah, this is definitely some ninja shit. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, you are giving yourself a very honest, vulnerable testing ground.
Yeah.
Where it's not your imagination the realities of the situation are such that they are touching your deepest fears.
Yeah.
And you've called that in.
Yeah. It's very real.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's extremely fucking brave.
Thanks.
It really is. Not everybody's up to run the full range with that level of sincerity.
I almost like need it. I almost need, I feel like that's why I'm attracted to poly relationships, because it's like, I almost need a ridiculous level of complexity in order to like feel like I can fully bring myself. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It does. And as someone who like really gets that on an intellectual level, I would suggest that monogamy has an equal complexity.
In some ways, you have to deal with boredom, and that's a thing. That's like,
and what's under that, and that's it. Like, what is really emerging through what I'm seeing as sameness, and how much do I have to see it as sameness to give myself a sense of safety? Yeah. How much am I denying the evolution of this other person in the name of my own comfort?
Yeah.
And how much is boredom a balm that's in my imagination and is not this person's reality at all?
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I'm somewhere in the middle, really. Mm-hmm. I'm like in the middle of like, I am willing to relate to people who are like openly relating to other people. And I'm willing to openly relate with other people. And I'm also willing to like go through those periods of time where it's like just you and another person, or it's just you and you have to like still show up fully. Like that's also challenging. And that's something that like, I realized that poly is not a cure for boredom. That's not what it's supposed to be for. Mm-hmm. Like it does offer that as like a shiny, like totally. A shiny promise. And that's initially why I was attracted to it. But like being in monogamous relationships as a poly person also challenges you to like see the gift in monogamy and not like blame monogamy as a structure for certain things.
Right. Even though it is part of the conditioning too. And I think that part needs to be addressed. But then I think so does thinking of yourself as a poly person or a monogamous person. To me, it's like, what level of devotion, what is the tone of devotion that I'm prepared to offer at this time?
Yeah.
You know, that's part of it for me too.
Oh yeah. That's interesting. So I'm still very young too. So it's like, things change. Things totally change. Yeah. Anytime I like to say I'm XYZ person, I immediately am like, I probably won't be for my whole life. You know?
No. Yes.
That's a whole other conversation.
That is a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right. Let's get to your question. Let's take as long as we need to settle into that hara, breathe deep into the hara, and find where that question wants to pop out of. Like that question that's like lurking behind the belly button.
Yeah, it's like, how do I honor my desire? Is the question that comes up. How do I honor my desire by like allowing myself to have what I want?
So you have rebirth into refuge. Rebirth and refuge. Hexagram 24 into hexagram 36. Mm-hmm. So hexagram 24 is like that moment after winter solstice when the day just starts to get longer. And refuge is like that place where you can see out, but others can't see in. So like there's a sense in both of these of like an overall sense of becoming that requires protection. So that you're free to undergo the transformation in its completeness without getting distracted by external validation or even like thoughts of like previous identities, like impinging on the transformation. So 24. This is the moment before emergence. You're still in that hypnagogic space between waking and dreaming when you are both in the world and in the womb. Emerge reborn as you. Winter solstice, new light stokes the fertile dark. You're being summoned from rest like the trees. Shed your layers to naked limbs and feel it on your skin. The way is lit again. The new cycle begins. Like Persephone, you're being summoned by your mother on an annual pilgrimage out of the underworld. Hades is releasing his grip on her, pomegranate in hand, that juicy little womb so full, ripe, and protected. Persephone prepares to be carried by spring. What are you returning to, and what are you leaving behind? Will you remember the womb? Are you ready for the turning of the light? What dead things do you still have to hand over to winter? Can you already hear the subterranean hum of spring? Can you let the new light all the way in? Feed on the slender light like a birch. Bask, photosynthesize. But remember, the dark is not a force to struggle with. Some things only grow under the moon. Rest is fertile. Notice when to feed and when to rest. How does the new light meet the spark under your skin? This is a time to get naked and be slowly penetrated, a little more each day. The new year devours winter as winter devoured the hemisphere. Respect the cycles. We're not fully in the light yet, but our foot is raised, a precipice. We're lit atop the 100-foot pole, surrounded by empty, fizzing space. Tickled, beckoned, summoned. Ready or not, we are here. Begin again. More mature than last time. More open, ready, willing. The territory is felt and the map is discarded. It's time to draw a new map together. So that's 24. Wow. And that's the primary tone of your question, of the situation, of like the causes and conditions that are coalescing into your question.
Yeah.
And so your transforming line is at 3. So you have a transforming line at 3. Do you keep putting on your old skin, returning to an old worn out identity, going back to old habits and feeling how they no longer fit can be valuable up to a point? Continuing to do this is a form of squandering your life force, and I don't have to tell you that's not a good use of your energy. Be where your feet are. The old comforts are no longer comfortable no matter how much you wish. Feel into the difference between following comfort and following ease. Ease can feel uncertain, but that's no reason to resist it. Are you at ease with ease? Notice rigid old habits. Let them go. So like allowing ease. Whew.
That's a big one. That's huge for me right now.
Yeah. Following comfort, like those old patterns, like you're saying, like sometimes the things that are painful are weirdly more comfortable.
Yeah.
And following, like in a way, like that's like following comfort, and following ease is being like, okay, wow, I actually don't need to let polarity degenerate into conflict to feel lit.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, that one took me a long time. It's really, yeah. And that goes into refuge. You remember who you are now. Protect yourself while you fully become that. Go somewhere where you're safe to be goo. Not everybody needs to know everything. No strutting about now. That kind of magnetism attracts too many rusty nails. Sometimes you stand in the light. Sometimes you hide in the dark. Now is a time to take cover. Now is a time to develop the skill to read the moment and surrender to its causes and conditions. Learn how to turn the knob all the way down. Hide your light under a bushel, a place where you can see out, but no one can see in. Much can transform under cover. Give yourself the protection you need. Let yourself be snowed in. Don't get out there and try to dig yourself out just now. That's like, we're on like inch 5 of snow today here. So that's really resonating.
Yeah, I know. We got a ton of snow too.
It's so beautiful. Yeah. This is not a trip to the Delta, but getting under the covers for the weekend while the weather passes. Track sensation in your body without reacting to it. Let the fear permeate you. Your trust is not dependent on anyone else's provision of safety. There's no need to get defensive. Just take cover. Stay out of view and accept protection. Accept protection. Let heaven have your back, so to speak. Allow the shitstorm to pass. You've been getting pretty shiny, and it's natural that you'd start attracting robbers at this juncture. Develop a cloak of invisibility that you can wear and shed at will. This will give you more confidence in being seen. Do you even know how beautiful you are? The poet Rilke wrote, "All angels are terrifying." Are you scared of yourself, angel, your own brightness? Or is the threat truly coming from outside? Observe and notice. Are you afraid of what your brightness might attract? Do you need a minute to consider how you might handle haters? Remain enveloped for now. Notice what happens when you remove yourself. Are you lonely in this refuge? Stop trying and reflect. How has the time of power and ease changed you? How and with whom will you go forward? On a new moon night, neither the sun nor the moon can be seen. You are in a new moon night. a pause between cycles, a time to keep your head down and plant some seeds. Go inward and notice where external validation has become overly important, where power and ease have become personae instead of being motion and stillness. What is only visible right now in the dark? What places in you are still untouched? Cultivate your truth in the dark and have faith that the time to emerge will come, and soon. Keep your own counsel, cards to your chest. For now, take refuge in the margins. Illusions disappear in the dark.
Wow, that's scary because like my feeling was that like I need to be putting myself out there so that like I have a successful business and whatnot. But like, it's like I really love just not doing that. Like I love being a hermit and just like kind of disappearing. And then there's like the part of me that's like, I gotta consistently show up, you know?
Well, that's interesting in the context of your question, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do I honor my desire? By allowing myself to have what I want.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like,
why do you have this belief that you won't have a successful business unless you put as much out as you do?
How will people know about me if I don't tell them? Like, how will people find me? You know, it's my thing.
Mm.
Yeah, you got me thinking about that.
So how is that related to having what you want? How many people need to find you for you to have what you want?
Like practically speaking,
yeah.
Just enough people to have like what I want are like intimate relationships with clients that like really inspire me to like be a better facilitator. And then like those people ideally would give me enough money that I would be able to like build my own temple, so to speak. That's like my plan. I want to like build a temple to myself, and I want a car. Like I want to travel the world. I want to like have experiences and connect with people. And the like intimacy thing that we talked about is like, that's the barrier, or I guess it's not really a barrier anymore because I'm like looking at it and tending to it now. So it's just more.
You're at least noticing it. You're at least noticing it. And that's the seed.
I'm noticing I want to change my experience of intimacy, basically. It doesn't really even feel like a barrier. I don't want to like even call it that. I want to like,
that's great.
I want to,
you need to language it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause then it's like that part of me is like not being really loved and acknowledged for like the job that it's been doing, which it's been like working very hard to protect me. And then it's like, okay, now we need to change what kind of protection we're giving ourselves. We need to like be open to intimacy and then like have like a healthy boundary there is like kind of what I'm hearing from what you read. Is like we can just replace the barrier with a boundary, or we can replace the like, or we can grow. Like
I think Hannah actually put it so succinctly in that the boundary comes from yes.
Yeah.
Boundaries come from yes.
Yeah, I like that.
Like the yes, this is where my skin is.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can touch me here.
Yeah.
Instead of coming at them from a point of view of like, I won't allow this. I won't allow this. I won't allow this. But being like, yes, here is my skin.
Yeah.
There is like a, how do I honor my desire by allowing myself to have what I want? And both of these are like hexagrams of being at ease in the dark.
Yeah.
And like having the courage to not be seen for a minute. You know, and really trust it. Because like how do I honor my desire by allowing myself to have what I want? Like being able to build that temple and grow that client base is also going to come from people telling each other about what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this like weird feeling that I've been having all day today because I have like a payment that I need to make tomorrow. Right. And I'm like challenging myself to like, okay, don't do things from desperation, like do things from devotion only, like express because you want to, because you have something to share, not because you are like following the rules. Right. And like today, and I knew I needed to like make a post today. And that's it. So I've just like haven't really engaged after like I've made that post. And then there's like, I've been telling people about like the workshop that I'm doing and stuff. So I've been like putting in work or whatever, but I've been like, okay, but like, don't put in work from a place of desperation, put in work from a place of like, let's try this. Let's see how this works. Like, let's experiment and let's play. Right. Mm-hmm. And then like anything that's not from that, I'm like really trying to make myself like sit with the feeling that comes up that makes me feel like I need to act on it. It's like, okay, if I'm not doing this, then I'm not doing enough. And then like, there's the work of like preparing myself to receive what it is that I am. That like I'm basically like throwing a rock in the pond and then the ripples happen as an effect of that. I didn't make each individual ripple.
Right.
I just so that's what I'm doing. I'm throwing a rock in the pond and then I'm just having to like sit back and trust that the ripples will like emanate from that. And that's
that's basically what this is saying.
Yeah.
Like, and it's kind of what you're describing with money and with relationship of like putting something out there before you even are noticing what's in your hand. Like really being tender with what is in your hand before it comes back out as nourishment for others. Like what's in your tummy, like what you've taken in, noticing really like how intimately it's nourishing you before it fully metabolizes and comes out as nourishment for others. You don't have to rush that process. And you don't have to put so much out. Like you don't have to. You can be tender with yourself. You know, like there's nothing to force. Like, and I really do think that thing of like, yes, you throw the stone, you don't make every ripple. The stone makes the ripple once you throw it. Like that.
Yeah.
Animacy is that's what ripples.
Yeah.
You know, like that mycelial impulse travels farther than you could really imagine, and certainly farther than you can be in control of. And so vast that you can trust it in good faith without any kind of proof, really.
Yeah. No, I definitely have like never fully trusted that I could be supported. So supporting myself, of course, is like a whole other edge. You know, if my relationship to support is like, oh, it's going to collapse out from under me, then of course I'm like, just like unconsciously expecting, like I'm looking for ways that I can try to get supported. And I'm not like letting myself feel the ways in which I'm supported because I'm like, oh no, I'm not like, it's going to fall out from under me. Well, I don't want to feel it. I want to just be floating instead of like.
Right.
Yeah.
Resting in what you already have.
Yeah.
Allowing myself to have what I want and by noticing what I already have. I mean, that's basically what this reading is saying. How do I honor my desire by allowing myself to have what I want? You're not going to do that allowing without noticing. Like the allowing and the noticing are totally intertwined.
Yeah.
Intimately intertwined, if I do say so.
Oh.
Bring it back around.
Good.
Yeah, these are both very like small, tender hexagrams of like,
yeah,
getting away from the external validation, getting away from having to throw the hot potato out, so hoping that somebody will like throw you $1 back for it, but rather like, okay, this is mine to hold and it's burning my hands right now. And that's okay, because this is still mine to hold and eat. Like it's not mine to throw away yet. This is my nourishment right now, this hot potato, like not to get too extend, like not to let the metaphor collapse as I'm right. to do, but yeah, to be able to hold that. It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, it is. It's so weird. It's like my body just like holds against it. And I'm having to be like, okay, body, like, that's okay. Like, this is as much as you can take right now. In the face of like, oh my God, like, am I going to be able to pay this bill on time?
Right.
So it's like super fucking edgy.
Absolutely. And you know what? Sometimes you won't. And sometimes that's okay too. Yeah. There's another edge.
Yeah.
And that, like, that's why I always come back to like, what's unbearable? What's unbearable?
Letting people down is definitely like financially, like agreeing to something and then not being able to like see the agreement through.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty close to unbearable for me because I want to be trustworthy
and honorable. Yeah.
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 It's so important to me.
Totally. I get that. I really get that.
And when I'm not able to do that, it's like more painful than if others are not able to do it for me, honestly.
You see that? I totally agree with that, actually. But that is a very externally focused, very yang energy.
Yeah. I trust the yang to make me money more than I trust the yin.
Oh, I think that's fair. I think that seems, yes.
The yin can do it though. It's normally like through expressing an archetype that I'm not super comfortable with. But
the yang can't do it without that yin source, without that yin replenishment. And the yin can't do it without the yang structure.
Right.
So it's total and more intimate interdependence, interbeing, and all that happy horse shit, But all of that is intimacy, all of it. What was one more look at your transforming line before we go? Let's see. 24. What's the connection between these two? Oh, do you keep putting on your old skin?
Yeah.
Returning to old worn out identity, going back to old habits and feeling how they no longer fit can be valuable up to a point. Well, how interesting. Well, falling in love definitely seems like it's out of alignment with your old identity.
Oops. Maybe, yeah. I don't know. It's tricky. It's almost like I'm coming back to re-identifying with falling in love from the perspective of disidentifying from falling in love, because before my entire identity was that. And it's not even actually, no, my identity would oscillate between losing myself in love and then like being single and being like, I don't need anyone. Like I'm so badass and alone. And
well, that's the anxious avoidant. That's that mixed pattern. 100%. Yeah. And I think that's the most difficult pattern to navigate.
Yeah. Cause you think you're one thing or the other thing. And then you just like kind of like fucking fuck yourself.
Exactly. So you swing too much toward one and then the other one like pops up with a vengeance.
Yeah. You know? And you're like, I thought we were over this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I thought we could just finally have secure attachment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
it's like, I'm so healed.
Yeah. No. And that gets back to our linear versus spiral thing. Like healing is not a linear thing. That is that is the spiraliest of all spirals.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Fuck Suffering podcast with me, your hostess, Rei Hance. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, come to reihance.com, REIHANCE, and send us a message. If you're interested in the book that I use to do readings on this podcast, it's called Oracle of Emergence, an Evolutionary I Ching. That's my book, and it's available on Amazon. If you would love to help us grow our audience, because you enjoyed the podcast so much, rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. And in the meantime, God, we really can't fuck suffering until we trust suffering. And in a wild existential kink, we are all in that together. Till next time. Bye.